is off.
And I think we are now live on Facebook, guys.
Yeah, I just got us up and going.
Boom.
All right. It is, so what did it say? Today's the 14th of June, and we're calling in. We got guys from all around the world again joining us today. Caleb Leach in Austria, Roger Kelly in Sweden. We got a great team of guests here today to talk about the state of race relations in international American football. Gentlemen, if you don't mind, if you go around and kind of introduce yourselves, where you are. Garen, why don't you start, and then we'll go on to the other guys.
My name is Garen Holly. I'm the head coach, defensive coordinator of the Munich Cowboys. I'm currently in Munich, Germany. I've had stops here in Munich in the past. I've been here for 4 years going on now, and I've also coached in Vasa, Finland. That's my EU experience.
Where are you from originally, Garen?
A little bit of everywhere, but I say Independence, Missouri. That's kind of high school, colleges in Missouri.
All right, you're a Missouri guy. All right. Yeah. Fred, let's go to you.
Yes, Fred Armstrong. I'm originally from New Jersey, good old Jersey Giant fan, of course. I first came to Europe in 1991 in Sweden. Stayed in Sweden till 94, coaching, and then headed over to where Garen is, to the Munich Cowboys in Germany. Also worked in Stuttgart in Germany, and also Landsberg for a brief time, and worked as a national team head coach for Austria, Sweden, and Czech Republic. I'm currently in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I guess Salt Lake City is about 3 hours.
How far from Seattle?
10.
Okay, that's for me being a West Coast guy. See, so
Yeah, 10 to Denver, 10 to Seattle. Yeah.
All right, okay, all right. Hey, Cliff, we'll jump over to you.
Hi, gentlemen. Just glad to be here and really humbled that we're able to jump on this topic. My name is Cliff Madison. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, the Crenshaw district, right out of the hood. I came over to Germany in 1989, and I played with the Berlin Adlers for 8 seasons. And from there, I moved to the Rebels. And I've been kind of a journeyman here in Europe ever since. Coaching career took me to Dresden, to Kiel, to Hanover, back to the Adlers. I was in Austria with Canton Lions for a spiel there. So I kind of moved around. We can go on and on and on and on. And I don't want to take a lot of time telling where I've been, but yeah, I've been here for 31 years in Germany, and I don't plan on leaving. So.
All right, fair enough. Now you said you're from the hood in LA. What does that mean, really?
That means, just looking from a Black perspective, what a lot of Black people call where they come from, when it's not the upgrade of neighborhoods, it's the hood. But by all means, it's still a place where I take pride in, because that's where my heritage is. That's where my family originates from, and that type of environment. And I'm not ashamed of it. And it's just something to be grateful and thankful, because you get to see the other part of what life is about and where you're able to succeed at in a different environment. And Germany was the place that I think God has chosen me to be in. There
you go. We can't forget here, sorry, Caleb, our social media director and everything else, doing a wonderful job. Caleb, let's get your background as well.
Yeah, so I'm still young in my coaching career, if we will, but I started my international career when I left college, my undergrad from Florida Tech. I went to Canada for a year at the University of Toronto, did my master's. Then I got a shot with Toronto Argonauts for a little tryout and just drank some coffee, if you will. And then after that, I headed to Germany. Was in Germany for a year with the Montabaur Fighting Farmers. After that, I started to explore what I could do outside of playing the game specifically, but I wasn't sure what that was like. I took off to Tokyo for a quick bit just to see what that was like as well. Came back from Tokyo after a few months to Salzburg, Austria to coach. And now I'm coaching with the Vienna Vikings and doing all this media work has been my passion in business development. And I'm running around. And Cliff, just to hit on what you said right there about being from Crenshaw, I was actually born in that area.
Really?
Okay. And then ironically, was like, all right, this is where we're from. And then my dad being a Detroit guy, my mom being a California girl, it's like, yeah, we probably don't need to stay in the LA district or Detroit. We ended up taking off to Kentucky. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the diverse backgrounds here. So guys, let's jump into it. And as I said before, just before we went on air, have we had our heads in the sand for the last 50 years? I thought I'm almost 70 years old. Went through the 60s. And I mean, Cliff, you know better than anybody what happened then. Well, you all do. Watts and LA and have we not progressed since then? Let's get up and just talk about what's going on right now. It was 2 weeks ago that George Floyd was killed, and have we not gone past that? That's in my 50 years we shouldn't have happened.
Well, I tell you what,
guys. It's all right.
I tell you what, we've taken steps forward, but we always seem to take steps backwards that is not productive. It's always good to reflect back to where you came from and the progress that you've made. But right now in our society, with our leadership, our political leadership, it's not doing us any justice to start throwing flames at each other, because it's only going to stoke that fire. And we see the results of it now. The fire is going, and it's going to be hard to put out because everybody's got their point of view on how it should be done. Black Lives Matter. You know, I was just reading this thing today about a pastor in Georgia said all lives matter. Of course, all lives do matter. Every human being matters. But right now, in point in case, if you look at it, the subject is Black lives. And it's not because of a flag, it's because of the brutality that police are inflicting on Black men. If you look at the numbers, it overweighs everything that's happening with the race thing. You know, you got Black people getting killed and white people and different other minorities getting killed. But right now the focus is on that. And I think a lot of people are losing the focus on what this is really about.
Guys, jump in. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. I actually just got off the phone with my mom, and she kind of brought this up to get my perspective, because she didn't know about some of the issues that I might have faced growing up, because we moved around a lot. We lived in a lot of different areas. So, I mean, I kind of talked to her about it, and essentially, I mean, I always try to bring it back around to humanity, like what's right and wrong as a human being, like race, color, gender, whatever aside. You got to take it back to humanity. You got to take it back to, would you like this to happen to you? Would you like this to happen to someone that you love? Based on your perception and your reality, you know, you may not have any contact with any issues of racism, or you might just be naive to it based on your reality. But I think people just need to stop downplaying, you know, what reality is for another human being. Yeah, you have to respect it. And I think you see a lot of people are wanting to educate themselves now, Black, white, brown, you know, whatever. I know a lot of people, at least that I've come in contact with, have at least contacted me asking to create a dialogue, you know, or I've had friends message me and apologize for maybe something they said insensitive. So I think people are starting to look at themselves more as human beings and what their behavior might have done to affect another human being. And so obviously things hit a boiling point 2 weeks ago, and you know, every decade there's some type of movement for civil rights. And right now in this decade, this is the movement that's happening.
Yeah, I think right now the young generation is speaking up throughout the world. You know, it was different in the 60s. You know, speaking with my dad, you know, you didn't see you know, people mixed together through those rallies, and if you did, it was, you know, very, very not that big as it was. You know, my son lives in Stockholm. There's 10,000 people rallying right there in the center of Stockholm. You know, Sweden is a melting pot. It has every nationality that you can imagine. It's like me being, you know, close to New York City, where, you know, in New Jersey, I'm about 30 minutes from. It has every culture you could imagine. And when Europe is starting to understand it. You know, us being football coaches, you know, some of the things we have went through in some of the countries that we've coached in. But I can tell you, it's really amazing to me how in the Czech Republic, being a national coach, I had no problems. In Austria, I was the first national coach they had. No problems, you know. It's something to deal with when it comes with us in sport, you know. Sport, for some reason, leaves that playing field available for us where they come from, wherever they come from, and we all have a common goal that we need to work with. And, you know, you have to get it done together, you know, and you maybe don't like the guy to the, you know, the right tackle with some things or this or that, but on, you know, you got to practice, and on Saturday we got to play and be ready to go as a team. And I think what you're seeing now is probably a really big time turning point where we're getting toward this, from what I'm seeing here in the United States right now, from what has just happened with George Floyd. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, of course, what's happened is terrible. What's happened to previous people is awful. I think this one resonated because we could watch it for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. This man died.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, we've seen the other films and other things that have happened to some of the other people, but this one resonated. And I'm hoping, you know, his death is not in vain. And, you know, us as football coaches, we're educators also. And, you know, there's nothing better for me than to have diversity out on my football field and coaches from different places to educate and teach, you know, the young people about our game, but also through our game about life. And one of the things that I've always preached is, you know, we have bad people in every race. Yeah. Just don't be that person. Be the good person. Okay. And we always talk about the negative part when it's 95% great and then it's 5% bad, and everybody focuses on the bad. Okay. So I think we need to focus right now on the good that's happening and move forward.
Cliff, as we talked about, you grew up in a tough neighborhood. You experienced the gang wars, the horrible gang wars between the Crips and the Bloods, and you actually had a pretty tough story to tell. You want to relate a little bit of that right now?
Yeah, well, you know, coming from that Crenshaw area, and I think Khalid kind of figured, well, his parents kind of figured it out. This is where not we want to be at, because they probably seen some things going on. You know, I grew up in South Central LA. Like I said, I come from the hood, but I take pride in that because I've seen a lot of people get out of there and have success. My stepbrother was an ex-gang member. He was part of the Crips. And at that time, when I was growing up, I would come home sometimes. This is my stepbrother. And I would come home and I'd see 30 or 40 guys sitting on the steps on my porch, on my front lawn. You know, these are gangbangers, and everybody's got their blue rags on and all those type of things, man. And, you know, it was dangerous, but it was a safe haven for me because my brother took pride in saying, this guy right here, nobody touches him or you're dead. He's going places. He's doing things with his life. He's a quarterback over at Crenshaw High School. He's been offered scholarships. So he's untouchable. And that's the kind of safe haven I had as far as being protected. But on the other hand, even when I was not around my brother and my siblings, what took place was you couldn't go in certain parts of the city with the wrong colors. And you guys know those stories. You know, you go in one area and you got a blue rag on and you're in the Bloods neighborhood, you're asking for trouble. So it kind of put my mind at a point where I had to know where my place was and what my role was in certain areas. And that being said, I'm glad and I thank my mother that she put us in diverse situations going to different camps with white people. So that kind of geared me up for college at a young age. So, because when I got around, you know, how do you conduct yourself? Do you act like you're from the hood? Do you wear your pants low? Do you do all those things that perceived as black people do as thugs, or how do you carry yourself? And so I kind of learned that coming from, the area that I come from. And it was a situation, it was tough because I seen some really, really horrible situations. Let me just tell you a story. I remember we played Carson High School at Crenshaw one year. This was my senior year. And it was a big rivalry of gang members there. And one guy came out of the bushes and he stabbed a guy in the chest with a hammer as we were coming out. And
This is just before the football game, in other words.
yes, right before the game, a guy came out of the captains are going out to do the coin toss and all that. And this guy just jumps out and he took the hammer and stabbed this guy right in the chest. And the guy sat there and bled. So they canceled the first 20 minutes of the game or something. But it was so vivid, and that stayed with me it'll stay with me for the rest of my life, because I've never seen that type of violence happen. Even though I seen my baby brother being killed, he wasn't in a gang, and he was a great quarterback as well at Crenshaw. He got shot down coming from a hamburger stand, going into to his girlfriend's house, and it just takes me back and makes me want to cry sometime that such a great talent and such a great person was taken away so young and so early with that type of violence. And, we always been stagnated with the idea of this is who we are, but that's not true. That's not true. This is not who we are. This is situations that has happened because we're not educating our Black men and women on how to conduct themselves. Education is the key for every race. And if we're not talking about it, debating on it, and I don't have to be your friend, but if we can't talk civilized, that's where problems come in. Because once the names, then the slurs and start coming, that's when people start losing respect, and they don't want to hear the dialogue that needs to take place. Because they're one-minded, and that's what America is right now. You've got one side doing this, one side doing this, and anytime we're trying to come together, somebody sticks something in there to make it seem like, oh, that race is doing this and that race is doing that. We need to stop that and get to real good civilized dialogue.
So I'm gonna jump in here. I like a lot of things you just said there, Coach, about acting in the hood, about conducting yourself in different arenas, about teaching yourself how to be around different people. So as coaches and you all have been all across the globe, let's start with just acting. As Black men, I'm gonna ask if you've ever been taught that you have to act a certain way in different neighborhoods based on the way you look and the job title and who you are, and maybe take that time in your response to educate somebody what that acting means. I remember a specific artist, I think it was J. Cole. He said, brothers in the hood are the best actors. And if you're not from that arena, you don't understand that statement. But like if you came from this different neighborhood, this different environment, you've understood exactly what that means. So whichever one of you guys want to dive into it, please go ahead.
Any one of you, go ahead, Fred.
I had an experience 8 years old at the bank in our town in New Jersey, and my mother was going to go and cash her check. So my mother was in line, and she's waiting to cash her check, and then this lady just comes and jumps right in front of her, and told her, "Listen, I'm cutting in front of you. I got to go. You can wait. You people need to wait." And then, this first time I saw my mom slug this lady.
Yeah.
Straight up. Okay. Rest in peace, Marva Armstrong. She slugged her. That was it. Okay. I learned right there, and my mother taught me, hey, nobody takes advantage of you because of what you look like. Okay. Nobody stops you from reaching the goals you want because of what you look like. I want you to know that you never have anyone disrespect you because of the way you look. And I think, as we're talking about the educational part and what you're talking about, Caleb, I mean, it all starts at home. I mean, you can put kids out and, you know, we're all culturized. We come from different cultures. Some of us, I know Cliff has kids, I have kids. You lay kids out in Germany or Sweden and let them go and play. You guys know that racism is taught. Okay. Kids just go and vibe and have fun with each other. Okay. So, you know, when you talk about the acting part, you know, that's where I started to remember that when that happened, hey man, I'm not backing down from nobody, you know, and, you know, that experience does that to you. And then as you go on in life, you see that you go back to that because you get in situations where, you know, here's that experience again. Somebody thinks they're better than you are because of the way they look. And because they're a different color. And the problem is the system. It's systematic. And you'll get to each part of it from the educational part. You know, in education, we have great things for people who are honor students. We have great things for people who really struggle. But in the middle, we don't have anything. Okay. And this is the part where you lose them. This is the part where they academically can't get it, or you know, they don't learn a trade. So what do? They go out to the street, they go and they survive. They do these things. Okay. So when Cliff's talking about the educational part, remember the oppression part is there. You can't deny that we've been oppressed for 400 years. That's ridiculous if you can't admit that. And that's where the conversation really has to begin. Okay. So, you know, I have great white colleagues that are coaches, man, good guys. As I do Black coaches, of course, you know, where we talk about these things. There's an open dialogue. I don't want one of my white coaches to feel like he can't talk to me over what just happened with George Floyd. I've got more calls from a lot of my white colleagues now because of what's happened. And Fred, you know, what do we do with the team? And are we doing the right thing? And that's okay, you know. But I think that was the turning key for me, Kev, was at 8 years old, I realized that that's just not going to happen.
Garen,
Thank you, Garrett. Coach Holly, what you got?
I mean, I think so. A lot of people don't know it because my dad doesn't have Facebook, but I actually come from a biracial marriage. My father is white, not my biological father, but he was there since I was born. So I don't know anyone else besides him. So and my sister is mixed. So you know, my parents have been together. I was born in '87, so they're probably together mid '80s, and they're both Army, so that's where they met. So. So for me, coming from that background of having a white father, having, you know, white family, extended family, and having a white father who treated me as his own, it was never about having a Black son. Like I never can ever recall being referred to as that, right? Or him ever even like bringing it up in any way. They raised me very strict, military, you know, very blue collar type family, work hard for everything that you get. And kind of the same way along how you view things at 8 years old, Fred, is just being taught that you are who you are and don't let anyone step on your toes or try to make you a backseat to what's going on in your life. You know, you're going to get what you work for in this life. Based on our ability to provide for you, you're not going to be handed anything. You're going to have to work for what you want. So I'm not coming from that silver spoon type of lifestyle, but having to work from that middle class lifestyle and work hard to get to where you want, and not let stereotypes get in the way, essentially. So that's and then so Caleb, to get back to what you were saying, I don't think I was ever told how to behave, how I would need to behave to be successful, and, you know, and be viewed as not Black or anything like that. But I think it's something, at least for me, growing up in the early '90s, you would see these things depicted in movies, and shows. So you kind of recognized it from, at least I did. I recognized it from that, and the wheels start to turn, and then you start having these experiences as a young kid, and you're like, oh, okay, like I understand now. So, and like I said, I've always been taught to be who I am. Like my mom's side's from the boondocks in Georgia, Red Dirt Road, double wide trailers. You know, my dad's family's from the Midwest, heart of America. So I always grew up being who I was. Like I love country music. I consider myself a country boy. I never tried to navigate the black and white lie. I just stayed true to who Garen was. And if I fit in with you, I fit in with you. If I didn't, I didn't. And that's something I've taken into my coaching life as well, with being able to have an influence on so many young men. I coach women too. And so obviously being African American, just trying to show them without color, this is who I am as a person. You know, if you come across all these people who might not have had interactions with minorities prior to, besides what they see on TV, you're able to change their concept of what, you know, someone from this race is like. And that's kind of been my experience. I've had some positive experiences with that, and I've had some negative experiences with that.
What about you, Cliff?
Well, you know, when we talk about education, because I think that's really important, and Fred kind of hit it. I think we need to take it back to that middle stage where a lot of things are missing. Because what happens is, you know, and Fred mentioned it, you know, you've got those are being honored and those are being put down. What happens to those in the middle? They get lost in the shuffle. And then you find out that many of those people, not just kids, they find themselves not knowing what to do with their lives. And there is nobody there to actually grab them. So I think as coaches, we need to make sure that we're touching the hearts and lives of those kids who we see walking around with no plan at all, whether it be in Europe, whether it be in America, because they're lost. They're absolutely lost, you know. And for me, I'm a man of faith. I'm a man of God, of faith, and I truly believe that my mother, being the person that she was, kind of set me in the path. And even though I strayed off, don't get me wrong, I'm not a saint by all means, by all means. So I'm not putting myself on some holy pedestal, because I fall short of the glory of God as well. Okay. And I know daily that I need to make sure that I make amends with him on how to conduct myself. Because I remember, man, waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, watching NFL football games, and my mother would say, you need to come to church to learn some good values on how to act as a young man. And I would hide my shoes not to have to go. I would actually hide my shoes, not to go to church. And she would say, you got some tennis shoes that you go out there and play sandlot football with, put those on. So those days kind of put me in a situation, my mindset at a young age, 11, 12, 13 years old, that, hey, there is something more than just the streets. There is something more than following the path of unrighteousness or not being good. Yes, we are all actors. Coaches, we're definitely great actors, but also we're human beings who have a heart for those who are looking and seeking some type of guidance. You know, we're more guidance counselors than anything. You know, especially when you find out, hey, this kid is not eating or can't, you know, we're there. And I can look at all three of Fred, and I can look at Garen, and I can look at Khalib, and I can look at Roger and say, hey, if any one of my kids or players come to me and they're hurting for something, you're going to step in and take the role and make sure that they're getting what they need the best that you can. So I think, you know, when we talk about education, we need to educate those other coaches, like Fred was saying. We need to educate other coaches, white coaches, other minority coaches, ourselves. We have to keep educating ourselves on where we want to take this to, because like I said, we can sit here and dialogue all day, but once again, how long is that going to take? How long is it going to go on? You know, because we can go on, this can go on for the next 6 months, but will it slowly die down and we'll just go back to our old comfortable ways? You know, comfortable is good.
With that being said, if you let me in, how do you start that dialogue with your other coaches, whether they are white or minority coaches, or just as we all said, some other friends that hit us up this week saying, hey, I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. So how do you
Sure.
take that conversation into an educated form, as Fred has said, and then put action behind it?
Caleb, I think here's the issue, because you got to remember everything we're talking about. There's always some societal issues that are parallel to it. Okay, so growing up, everybody remember how you had your favorite teacher, your favorite cop, your favorite coach. These are three professions, and I call them professions because that's what they are. They're not martyr jobs, they're professions. You have to be professional to be any of those. In our society right now, take a look at those professions and how much ridicule they get. Okay. Where before, that was the saving grace. For me, I could go to one of my coaches or I could go to a teacher, right? The problem is now is that those professions that used to be, the base and the middle ground for, societal success in your neighborhood, for instance, nobody's trusting that. Oh, you're going to fail my kid, because, this and that, he didn't, or he's 2 points away from being valedictorian, but you won't give him the points, even though, he has a 98. Oh, you coach, you hate my kid. You're not playing him because you don't like my kid. Okay. And then in fairness to the good cops, they're out there trying to do their job. And, people are shooting bullets at them, but we're ridiculing the good ones based off of the bad, this percentage of the bad thing we're talking about. So until we can get those functions straight, because it's part of society, you see it every day, we got to get that part where the educational part has to come together with everybody, to move forward toward what you're talking about, Caleb. I think if those societal issues are not taken care of and those core things, because those are things that kids do every day or see every day. And if you're getting a bad message toward that, you're not going to vibe to it. Okay. So that's my feeling on that.
All three of you, all four of you, excuse me, Caleb too, you've all ended up in Europe, playing and or coaching. What did when you first came, Cliff, you were the first one here.
You're there.
What did you encounter in terms of race relations when you first arrived, and maybe even compared to now? But just tell us a little about that.
Well, I got here in 1989, and that's the year the wall came down here in Berlin, and it was a little. The transition wasn't bad. I kind of considered it good because they had the U.S. military here. And I had friends that I had met and actually became good friends with. Several guys, Gary Boss Hall, Kevin Reeves, David Spencer, a lot of Clarence Rambo. These are guys that played with the Adler when I got here. And there's a lot of other guys before me. So the transition of being around a different race and a different culture wasn't as bad because Berlin was the melting pot of Europe.
Yeah, the army boys.
So you had a lot of black soldiers moving around, doing different things, and you've seen so many mixed relationships. German women, they loved black men. Not being racist or downing. I think the way we carried ourselves was different for them. And they were looking for something different. Okay. That's what the one girl told me that I met back in 1990. She said, I want something different and you're different. I said, is it because of the color of my skin? She said that and just how you carry yourself in comparison. But the football aspect, I was accepted with ease because those guys that were before me had set the trend on how to act. Okay. And some of them probably acted bad, but still, when I came here, I had guys like Stefan Mika, Roman Moscas, Frank Stanka, a bunch of German guys. They embraced me with open arms. Not saying that a lot of people didn't have different thoughts about me from where I'm from, because I'm quite sure there was, but they didn't voice that to make me feel uncomfortable.
True. Yeah.
All right, so Garen, you're the most recent arrival, so to speak. When you got here, what did you encounter? What was your experience?
So I got here first time in 2013. For me, I think I lived here when I was young. So my parents were stationed at Illisheim in the early 90s. We moved back in 94. I was young, but I'd lived abroad before. But we were pretty much only on the base. So for me, moving to Munich itself, I didn't realize how diverse Munich was. So I think that helped me seeing a lot of the diversity. This is the first true big city I've ever lived in. So that some of that took some time to get used to, but I was embraced by the team very well right away. I don't think from a team perspective, I've never had any issues. It's always been nothing but love. The biggest opportunities in my career have come here in Munich. I was a DC at 23 years old. I was a head coach at 29 years old, and it was all thanks to the Munich Cowboys, their faith in me as a coach and the work I'd done previously. Now, I've had a few run-ins within the city itself, just crazy people as you're walking by, want to say something slick type of thing. Stopped a few times at the train station, but whatever. But that's the extent of it. From a football perspective, it's been all love, it's been all respect. But yeah, I've had a good experience, and I can't say anything negative about it from a race relations standpoint.
Fred, let's go to you about that one.
In 1994, and this is me and Cliff talking, obviously you young dudes don't know about this one, but in 1994, there used to be something called the Black Coaches Association. I went to my first...
in Europe, excuse me, sorry.
No.
In Europe.
Yeah,
Okay.
but in the States, but Europe was invited to it all the time.
Okay.
And I went and, I went and sat in a meeting, and I had coached in Europe that year, my second year in Sweden, excuse me. And I'm hearing the dialogue on, well, we're going to get these minority coaching spots and all this thing, they have these certain amount of spots for these people. I'm listening to this stuff and I'm going to myself, I can't believe what I just heard. And here I am, I'm a head coach in Europe, and I want to come back here and deal with this. And it hit me when I went back, how appreciated I was, how, in Stockholm, it was awesome. I was taken care of, very well. The race relations are very good there because it was mixed. And it's like Cliff said, you were different to some degree. The football helped you because you were doing something that people liked. The players were very attentive to you because they knew you knew what was going on. Your coaching skills, you had to coach everything back in the 90s. Cliff knows.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the respect and love you got because of the way that they have a club system was very, very awesome. And I can remember the team I had was called Solna Chiefs. This team was in Stockholm. In Stockholm, I told you, had all different flavors and colors. So that's what we brought to the table. And we had guys from every walk of life on that team. Now in fairness to some places in Sweden where we played, they don't have, that type of diversity. Okay. But what I encountered putting that team together, where we ended up beating Limham Griffins, who had 21 straight wins and win a national title. It was this melting pot, and it did something within that city. We had Americans that were Swedes, we had Africans that were Swedes, we had Latinos, we had everybody of showing Stockholm, Sweden, what could happen in a little city like Solna. And that's one of my best memories because it was about who I was. This is how it should be. Doesn't matter where you're at. I'm in a place in Idaho Falls here where You know, I was the first African-American head coach in any sport in 100 years in the state of Idaho, okay, for high school. Well, you know, I'm not going to let 5 or 10% of the bad experience I had take away from the 90% of great people that I've met here. I was the only Black teacher. I mean, I've had, you know, so again, it's a mindset, and it's about understanding who you are and what you can give back. And in Europe, I promise you, for people who want to go and visit, I think that's what Cliff was talking about. You didn't get your education until you went. We only knew New York, or we knew LA, you know. You have to go out and travel, go visit other places, go see how it works, okay? But now we've lived there, and it's different when you put yourself into the society. So yeah, I mean, the coaches, they wanted to learn from you. I think in the early 90s, we had a little bit more of that. Now that, you know, a lot of the European coaches are branching out. They've gotten the education. They go all over the globe. They've grown with football. So, you know, a lot of those nations want their, you know, coaches to be coaching inside their systems and doing it that way. And you know, and that's okay, you know. At first I used to get a little angry about it, but I understood the big picture, and that's part of what we should be, what I should have been doing, you know, and I know I've helped in that way. So yeah, I think Sweden was that way. Czech Republic was awesome. You know, they were not a democracy right away. I was there 1 year during that time before they became one. You know, walking around the streets of Czech in Prague, no problems walking with people. People look at you a little different, but it was something about us being a football coach. Okay. Now, if you had an African passport, maybe you were looked at differently. Okay. But it was something about the American passport and us doing something in their society that was good, you know. And this is why I love Stockholm. We have Stockholm Mean Machines, man. There's, you know, 300 kids. There's coaches. They come from all diverse backgrounds. They've done a great job as far as letting everyone participate. And you know, that's why I still belong to it. It's just something I like to do.
So have any of you experienced the fact that you didn't get a job or couldn't get a job in Europe due to the color of your skin?
No, I don't think the skin color and it, you know, I've had that thought in my mind several times, you know, why they didn't call me, or, you know, but I've learned to just let it go, because for some reason my faith lies in God. And I said, if God didn't want me to have it, then I'm not going to get it. And I leave it at that, because my faith is stronger than any man can predict what I'm supposed to be doing. Of course, there comes disappointment when you think, hey, man, you know, I like to have that job, I'm available. But then there's a bigger power that's saying you don't belong there. Fred is working in Idaho, right, Fred?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, just on the faith side, there's never been a Black coach in that town as a head coach, and you're there. And it's not because Fred is a Saban in people's eyes. It's because his character has taken him there. And I'm quite sure his faith in himself has given him that platform to say, I can do this no matter where I sit or where I'm at. I'm capable of leading a team, educating young men. And people who are in control of getting those people there, they see that. Some people are blinded because of the color thing, but other people who are able to open their eyes and say, you know something, this is the best person for our situation and what we're trying to achieve. So as far as being put on the back burner for it's probably happened, especially being a Black quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Now there, I've experienced a lot. Today's quarterbacking situation is totally different.
Totally different.
As you guys can see, what's happening in the NFL, the trend, what you guys can see in college, it's a different trend from when I was quarterbacking in college. Because every time when I came out of high school, the first thing they wanted to do is put me at receiver or defensive back because they thought I was not smart enough.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
This is back in the 70s.
This is back in the 80s. I
Sorry.
came out in
I didn't
81.
mean to age you. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm not as old as you yet, Roger, but I'm getting.
Yeah.
Raj, we ain't that old yet. I'll go with that clip. We ain't that old.
But when I went to the University of Colorado, the first thing they told me after 3 practices, they said we're thinking about making you a receiver or defensive back. I said, well, if you do, I'm transferring. Chuck Fairbanks sent me in his office and told me, we think you're a great athlete, but we're not sure if you're able to run the offense. So that just went to show me, hey, you don't trust me being smart enough to take the offense in and to be able to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And as a freshman, I was better than the guy that they had. Okay, I was better than the guy that they had, and they knew it, but this guy was a senior. So I felt it right there, but I didn't let that take away from the fact that I know who I am. And eventually I did transfer, but I didn't allow the system to say, this is who we want you to be. Because that's what happens to, black men a lot. We allow the system to dictate who we want to be, especially when you're not a superstar. You get put into this little box and say, try to scramble yourself out of this box. And if you rise up to the top, then you're a great success story. But see, we shouldn't accept that. We should accept what God has given us and to be able to put it in a place where we're comfortable with it. And yes, the struggle is still real. It's still real, Roger. And I'll be 58 this year, and I just look back at some of the things that I've experienced. But I can't allow what's around me to distract me. Because if I do, I get caught up in the hoopla, and I'm not focusing on loving somebody else the way they need to be loved. I'm not focusing on my family. I'm not focusing on guys like that's on this panel who are doing great things within their community, because you can't touch everybody. But those who are in your settings and those who you communicate with, if you can just touch them and they can touch somebody. See, we got to understand this. We're all blessed to bless somebody else.
Right. Right.
Caleb, I know that you got to jump off here pretty quick. Let's jump in with I think you had a question or two here.
I didn't necessarily have a question on this one. I was appreciating just learning and receiving it. And to answer your question that you threw to the panel about my experience coming to Europe, I had a lot of learning to do about the perception. So I grew up in the South, in Kentucky, and growing up there are certain pressures that was placed, or that I felt that was placed on me, and how I was perceived to other people as a Black male when I walked in the room, that everyone in the world perceived me the same way. And it took me a while until I left America to understand that that's not the truth. And I remember dating a girl in college. She was Serbian, and she would talk to me about these things, and I felt like she wasn't getting it. And she was like, no, I'm telling you, like, that's just not how things are. And I was like, man, you're not hearing me. And then I left. I went to Canada. I was like, you got a little nicer up here. Now, Canadians are very nice. See, Roger's going to wave and smile. Canadians are very nice. But I remember I got to Germany, and just like all the other coaches have said here, you were kind of valued or seen a little differently because you're an athlete, of course. But at the same time, they were asking certain questions that I knew some of the people I grew up with never asked me. Like, hey, how do you feel about that? Hey, why they perceive you guys like that in the music videos and on TV shows? Hey, why can't, like, hey, Caleb, you speak 2 languages. You speak German. Like, on the movies, I never see Black people speak 2 languages. And I was like, what, you thought we were all stupid? But I appreciated the question. Like, seriously, I really appreciated that someone in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland had even asked. Now, did it come off a little goofy and dumb? Of course it did. And I kind of rolled my shoulders back, like, hold on, man, you're not gonna talk to me like that. But there was a conversation,
Right.
and I will give one of my good friends from Germany, Uli, who played together in Montevideo. He's 36, or he was 36 when we were playing, and I was 25. I was 25 my first season. And he was just telling me, he said, hey man, I just didn't grow up with that word. I didn't grow up with the N-word. So to me, I didn't know it. And I'm not, he doesn't use that word or anything derogatory of that nature, but there was a lot of learning like that going back and forth my entire year. And I really appreciated the fact that I traveled into a new country and I received all the love that all these other coaches are attesting to as well. And I received the education in a different format. So then, just like you said, Coach Fred, when you came back home to the association, you were like, wait, y'all get treated like that? They love me where I live.
Right. Exactly. And that is this is the thing that, us coaching in Europe, it is a different platform. Is there racism in Europe? Sure, there's racism in Europe, racism all over the world. Okay. But, there is a difference being there and being here. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And being here at home right now, when I came back 2012, and I stayed in Europe, my home was Sweden, 1991 to about 2012, all the time. Sweden was home base. Just the changes that I was seeing, with the youth and some good things now, where culture, as far as African-American culture, through music, through the food, through our clothes, I just started to see this integration of, people I never thought would be urban to some degree, right, at that age. So you're starting to see, and a lot of people didn't like that. Let's get real, right? A lot of people didn't like that. They didn't like that our culture was touching young white America like it has done. But I saw that there was just more dialogue between, Black and white teenagers, which I was working with. We didn't have that kind of dialogue when I was coming up in the late 70s and 80s. I couldn't go over to my buddy's Johnny's crib and have any dinner, but we could play football together. You know what I'm saying? We could go to practice together. We could do that, but we couldn't do those things. And I think, again, I want to stay on the positive side of things, is that I do believe that this shift is coming because we see it out in the street. We're seeing it out all over the world right now, that, yes, it is about what's happened with Black men in general. Of course, this is like, it's a no-brainer that people are there understanding that. But I think people are thriving to communicate and to keep learning about each other and not disrespect each other, and this is the role, that the platform we sit on, that you sit on as a coach. It's the greatest platform in the world. I'm sorry, Roger, I know you're a journalist, but there's nothing. Well, you do coach, Roger, you coach basketball. So, there's no better job in the world than what we do. I just honestly feel like that. And the platform you have, you can expand it and you can touch a lot of lives from all over the world. And that's what we've done, touch them everywhere. And I just feel here at home, it's difficult, but we gotta have some barriers broken down, and we have to restructure how we deal with our youth. And that's what they're being taught. Because then when they get older, well, that's what mom and dad taught me. That's what I know. That's the group I'm with. And this is how they act. Okay. So I just hope that, I don't know how we can do it. I'm hoping to find another platform to work on where we can do that. But I feel in Europe, we're as good as it can be. I think we're very respected there. Players and coaches, when they come in, there's always somebody, that you got to deal with. But I think at the end of the day, overall, Europe has been very good to African-American coaches and players, at the end of the day.
I agree.
Same.
Roger, muted.
Glebe is muted.
Both of them are muted.
Yeah, I see that.
Hey, You guys don't want to talk? Oh, there you go. Roger, we can
There
hear
we
you.
go. Sorry, guys. Garen, I was just addressing this to you, but it's to all three of you. But we're going to wind up here pretty quick. But you, as head coaches, you all have an opportunity to have a huge impact on the lives of all these young men, and that also includes race relations. How much are you aware of that, and of the effect that you're having on your athletes?
For me, especially at my last job, I was at Presentation College. It's a NAIA school in Aberdeen, South Dakota, so right in the middle of South Dakota, about 3 hours from Sioux Falls, about 5 hours from Minneapolis. And I was responsible for recruiting our local area around Aberdeen. So you're talking rural South Dakota. You know, it's a lot of white kids. You know, there'd be, you know, occasional Native American kid from Western South Dakota that we'd pick up. And so I was able to really see my influence, because that was the first place in the US I've been for multiple years, you know, not just a one and done back to Europe type of thing. So I was really able to recruit kids and build a relationship with kids who might have not had literally any contact with African American, besides, you know, sport, maybe, you know, competing against somebody from an area. And so you're able to watch those kids develop, you know, each year, and with a lot of the other minorities that we bring into the team from other areas like California, Texas, you know, Florida, Missouri. We kind of pulled some kids out of everywhere. So it was really cool to watch how some kids evolve. And you can see how they might come out of their perceived, you know, racial shell of being a white person, you know, now, you know, they're really involved with this group of minorities, and you kind of see it vice versa. Or there maybe you got a kid, like I had one of my kids out of Missouri. He was South High School, which is kind of in the region where I played and grew up. And he completely engrossed himself with a group of guys from Gettysburg, South Dakota, which is like a really, really small town. And they were like best friends. And it happened, you know, over a course of a semester. So you're kind of able to see how these kids start to mold with each other from different backgrounds. And you're responsible for creating that atmosphere, you know, especially as someone who recruited them and brought them there. You know, they trust that you say, this is a safe environment for me to grow as a young man and gain life experiences. So you create that atmosphere, you bring them into that atmosphere. And it's kind of really cool to see the fruits of their labor and how they evolve with each other over the course of 4 to 5 years. So I think I've always said, coaching, it's who I am. It's what I will always do. I'll never get out of this, you know, God willing, something crazy happens. My goal is always just to have a positive experience on anyone's life I cross. I'm not going to try to make you believe what I believe. I'm not going to try to change you as a person. I'm just going to try to be a positive influence on your life. If you pick something up out of that, that's great. If you don't, you don't. Like Cliff said, you know, you can't save everybody. I learned this as a coach too.
Yeah,
There's some kids that I would stand outside their class, call them like, where you at? You got 5 minutes to be here. You know what I mean? And then I would drive myself crazy trying to teach them how to be a good young man and be responsible. But then a few years later, they write you like, hey, coach, I realized how much of a knucklehead I was. I see everything you were trying to do for me. Like, those things are so rewarding. You couldn't say them in the moment, but there's a piece of you that they took with them. And at some point in their life, it's going to come back full circle. So that's kind of how I approach coaching in general. I believe I'm good at what I do. I'm knowledgeable about what I do, but it's more important for me to make a connection with my players.
Red, the question goes to you. Same thing.
Oh man, what I love is I have guys at Stockholm who I coached, and now they're coaching, and they're, you know, working with the program and influencing, you know, young people, you know, male and female, as Garen was talking about. We coach them all now, you know, and just to see, and I'm talking, there's 8 guys that I had that played for me when I was the head coach with Stockholm back in 2001, and the job that they have done, and I'm just so proud of them, you know, and the type of men that they've become, you know, and the influence that they have. Then it makes me feel really good to know that I had a little piece of that, you know, and that they tell you about it. And that's where you see the labor of your fruit in Europe. You know, it's later with guys that you coached, seeing how they're doing in life, right? Because it's a different thing than what we got here at home when we're coaching. You know, it's so impactful, and it's one of those things that when it happens to you, you know, I'm kind of speechless about it because it's just awesome. I'm very proud of them, all of them.
Cliff, you're the longest tenured of the group here today, maybe in Europe, to be perfectly honest, looking at your coaching history and playing history in Europe. I mean, do you echo the same sentiments?
Absolutely. And I think this goes back to the seed that you plant when you first get here, how you're respected in Europe. If you come in thinking you're just all that, what a lot of people say, and very demanding instead of listening, that's where you tend to fall off if you're not a listener. Because remember, all of us have a story. And the young men that I've played with and coached, and right now I'm the Landis Ausfall coach, the U16 coach. And I think right now, for me, that's the greatest feeling, to see 50 young men being attentive and wanting to hear somebody with experience. Not that I know everything, because I have to call other coaches as well and other people. I have mentors myself that I need to get updated on certain things. So I think the platform that all of us carry as coaches is something that it's almost like a father figure for a lot of these kids. And if you tell your kids we're doing it this way, and they somehow stray off to not doing it that way, you have to have borders for them. And once you can get that over to them, they will follow you. For my Landis Ausfall kids, I had several kids from diverse backgrounds, from Muslim to Africans to Yugoslavish. Every nationality that you can imagine was on this team. And you can see some of the uncertainty amongst them when they first got there. But after 2 weeks, you can see that the unit started to come together just by the things that would come out the coach's mouth. Because I make it a point that not just myself, that the entire coaching staff is talking the same language about respect, about education, about doing the right thing, about not being involved with certain people that you know are negative. Because I would tell my players, and they know it, if you're not doing good in school and your parents call me, you can't be a part of this. And as you say you love football, do the other thing outside of football. So I think using that platform to touch these kids is great. And I've come across a lot of great people here in Berlin and throughout Europe that have those same sentiments about how we need to conduct ourselves to be an impact on the generation growing up. Because our generation, me and Fred's generation, we're far surpassed of trying to implement to older people. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. So right now we have to focus, and I think Garrett is in the perfect position right now. Garrett is in that perfect position here in Europe to really have an impact in that part of Germany. And this is a dialogue that I think is very important for us to be able to stay connected and to build something where we can always reach out and kind of go over different scenarios on how to handle it, because you never learn enough. Roger, you're the oldest of the group here. You still look great, though, I must say it. But I think,
do I owe you? No, do you owe me money or something, or what?
Absolutely not. But I think for guys like Khalib and Garen, you know, if you guys ever want to reach out to me, I'm always available.
Same to me.
For anything, because that's what I think I'm here for. I think God has put me here, and I've had some struggles in my life as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think I've matured enough to figure out, you know something, help the next man with something that he might be struggling with. And that's what black and white candy stripe. A friend of mine told me that. Black and white candy stripe. I still love my brother.
And
Caleb, sorry,
Karen,
Fred, I was just going to
I'm
get.
sorry. I just want to let them know something,
Yep,
Rob.
go ahead.
Caleb, I want you to always remember that you are the majority. You are not the minority. And that's how you coach. That's how you go about your business. You are the majority. You're not the minority. Okay. Because you are doing something. I told people, if you ever want to really coach, come on over to Europe. Okay. Come on over to Europe where you can show that you can coach. Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest jobs I ever had. Okay. So don't ever let nobody tell you, you know, you're the minority coach or whatever. And I guess that's for me personally, because that's what I went through my first job in Lehigh, where, you know, I didn't understand that's what I was. That's what I was coming to be. And, you know, I've met great people there now. Don't get me wrong, great experience. But, you know, hey, I was hired because I was the minority guy. And that was the last time I ever would be the minority guy. You understand?
Yes.
So put that in your toolbox.
There we go.
Thank you.
Caleb, any last words from you before we wind up here?
No, guys, I appreciate it. I'm late for another phone call, but I appreciate the wisdom that has been spread here and dialogue that has been created, and the fact that you all opened your doors. I'm very thankful and grateful for that. So this was great. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a delight having you all of you on here, and we have to continue this. We'll do it again very soon, and keep the discussion going, as all three of you have said before. We need to keep talking. That's the only way to get us through all of this.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, thanks again.
Thank you.
Viewers,
you.
thanks for watching.
God bless all of you, man. Have a wonderful Sunday.
All right, you too. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Caleb, reach out, man.
I will.
All right.